Poison Ivy, issue 43, G. Willow Wilson writing with Jaime Infanti? Infante.
Yes.
There you go. That sounds.
That's what I would say.
Anyway, this is you that reads this. You talk about it.
Yeah. So it starts off with a short time before the mayor stuff kicks off, and that Harley is crying because Ivy has just told her that they cannot be a public couple because now that she's running for mayor, she can't be seen with a clown. And those aren't Ivy's words, those are Harley's words, but Ivy doesn't she doesn't correct her. And she's just like, I'm not ashamed of you, but like, you gotta be saying it's not a good look for me to be running with mayor with you running around. And so Harley's like, I've had enough of this, and she leaves. And Pam's on the floor, and is clearly upset. And so it smash cuts to the mayor's office now, and she's there. And Janet brings in Great White, who is handling infrastructure, and he has with him this like plumbing magnate whose family has worked on Gotham's for generations. And Ivy wants a tour of the sewer systems because who knows them better than this guy? Now, this is all they cover because Ivy doesn't want to do things as things have been done before. And that is the main through line that Wilson throws in here, is that Ivy became mayor to make a difference, not to keep doing the same things. However, the longer this book goes on, the more Ivy falls back into old habits. And for a while, I was thinking that was a weakness of the book, but I feel that is Wilson saying that, like, no matter what Ivy does, she's her own worst enemy. Because all of these decisions that she makes to try to make things better, she can't get out of her own way. So she takes this guy down into the sewers, and he's like, hey, wait, no, I'm not an actual plumber. Like, I run like the business side of things. And she's like, well, if you're on top of all of the work, then you should trust that your guys have been doing the right thing. And she takes him down to where she was hanging out as Queen Ivy, like hanging out in the sewers, because that's where during that run of time, that's where they brought in, so Tynan brought in the gardener, right? I don't know if you remember any of that stuff from Batman when Ivy was Queen Ivy, but
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And then that's where she got infected with the Lamia spores and became this kind of version of her and was reborn, and we got all of that fun stuff. But as they're walking through this area, and she can see all the greenery that is coming up in these sewers, right? So that means like life is possible through all of this. There's this thud, and she turns around and it's Catwoman. And I'm still not clear why Catwoman's there, but she says that she's basically on the run from Savage, and that she's disappointed in Pam doing the things that she's doing. And that's what I was referring to when we were talking about Batman, in that seeing her make that decision in Batman, the way that Savage was able to kind of sweet talk her into doing this, and then seeing here on not doing things the way that they've always been done before. I see why she gave Savage the okay to go after Batman, because in the pages of Poison Ivy, her and Batman have like a stalemate going on, right? That's why she's able to be in Gotham, but she doesn't come all the way in. And you have the Green Knights that are running around still, and all of that. And here, Selena presses her about Harley, and she tells her, I don't know what you're playing at. I know you didn't run out of the goodness of your heart. And Ivy tells her the legitimate power is the only way to protect herself from her enemies, right? Which, again, things going on in this country feels very spot on to certain other political figures. And when she gets pressed about Harley, the plumbing magnet pops up and gets completely taken by seeing Catwoman there. He wants an autograph and thinks like there's this whole big thing. But Selena runs up to a pipe, and we don't see her again. As they were handling all of this, through one of the quarters they came through, someone has painted. So mind you, in the time that Ivy and the plumbing guy had walked through here, this spray paint wasn't on there, but it is a quote from Richard II, which is one of Shakespeare's history plays, about a hollow crown. And it says, within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples, and this is where it starts to get, hold on, hollow crown, rounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his court, right? And she's, you know, she's like, I don't suppose you're a fan of Shakespeare. You wouldn't have done this. And he's like, oh no, I go to the Renaissance Fair with my daughter every year. You know, she's Shakespeare, but other than that, nothing. And yeah, so that ends up playing into things later. But Ivy's entire plan to bring this guy down here is to show how much, like, what they've done has done damage to Gotham, because as they have replumbed all of the stuff underground, they have redirected raw sewage to empty into the river, which is poisoning Gotham in the long run. And he's like, well, I didn't have any other choice. And that was all before my time. And, you know, he says, you know, murdering me isn't going to fix Gotham. And she goes, well, we won't know until we try. So she ends up encasing him in this tree. It's called like Dragonwood or Dracana Draco, a dragon tree. And it can survive in almost complete darkness. So she encases him at the root of where this stuff is being, like the raw sewage is being taken out of. And she calls Janet and is like, yeah, we're definitely going to need a new plumbing connection. As she calls Janet, Janet's there with the new lady who I forget her name, but she's like the press person. Jui is her name, Juhi. And they're arguing about Janet's relationship with Ivy. And she's like, you know, I don't think this is like the one HR rule you're not supposed to break, and you're the HR person. And Juhi tells her, you know, you're allowed to walk away. You know, you don't have to stay with Pam all the time. And Janet's like, yeah, but what if I don't want to? So it's almost now that she's just embraced Ivy in her life. And Ivy encapsulates this guy, and she calls Peter Undine, who's the guy with the flower face, and she starts crawling up through the sewer. And he tells her that, you know, we're going to need a new plumbing person. Can you work with your connections you have from the business sides of things? And then she asks him about Shakespeare, about the Hollow Crown. And he's like, you know, it was a warning about the emptiness of power and the inevitability of death. But, you know, for Pam, that means nothing, because she's been revived so many times. And then he's like, you know, you do become a bit paranoid every time something like this happens. But anyways, they end up talking. They end up meeting each other in Gotham, and like everyone that's around Pam is like starstruck to see her. And right before they meet up, Undine is telling her, like, you tend to get a bit paranoid anything like this happens, like, because everyone close to you has ever turned on you. And she's like, yeah, but you know, the businessmen deserve it, right? They have it coming. Undine's totally not sold, and Sprout, who's in the Green Knights, he comes up, he's like, hey, something just popped out of the ground in the park, in Robinson Park. It's got teeth. So Ivy and Undine run over to go see, and it ends up being one of the guys from the Parliament of Trees known as the Hill. And he's there to tell Pam that she's really messed things up by killing and eating the Bog Venus, and the Parliament's going to war. So her and Undine see Sprout, who runs up saying that something popped out of Robinson Park and it has teeth. And so they run over there and they see that it's this big like mound of green talking, and it is, as Ivy calls him, the Hill, the most turnip-brained of the Parliament of Trees. And he's there to let Ivy know that the Parliament is going to war with her now because she killed and ate the Bog Venus. And that's where the issue ends. So not only is she, you know, having issues as mayor and needing a new plumbing contractor, but the Parliament of Trees is going to war with her, and I would assume Gotham as a whole. So, a pretty solid issue, and we're seeing the fallout from Ivy's decisions and her impulsivity and whatnot, right? Because original plan wasn't to kill the businessman, like the plumbing guy, and she got pissed because of the runoff, and yeah, so she's still just doing these things and making headaches, and yeah, so the art's not like, it's good, right? Like all the stuff down the sewers has like a lot of heavy shadows and is really playing with this like the sense of claustrophobia. But like compared to some of the other artists that we've had on there, you know, it's not as good as like say a Takara, right? But it does the job enough, and like the different plant creatures, right? Like you have the hill when he shows up, right? I've never seen anything quite like this, right? Where it's just like this big chunk of the park sprouting up, and talking. So I thought that looked pretty good. But yeah, to rate this one, I will give it a 7.5.